This is CNN Breaking News.
There's breaking news coming into CNN. The Inspector General of the Department of Justice has just launched a full-scale investigation of the Justice Department, the FBI's handling of investigations into the Hillary Clinton private email server, among other issues. Our Justice correspondent, Pamela Brown, is joining us right now. Pretty startling development, Pamela. Tell our viewers what you've learned.
Well, this is the watchdog of the Justice Department releasing the statement today saying that he will investigate pre-election actions taken by the FBI as well as the Department of Justice involving the investigation into Hillary Clinton's private email server and some of the allegations of misconduct. This request came from both Democratic and Republican lawmakers on Capitol Hill. In a sense, Wolf, we were expecting this to happen given all of these lawmakers who have come out and asked for this investigation to take place. And I'm just going to run through some of the allegations that the Inspector General says that he will be looking into. One of the allegations is that the Department or FBI policies or procedures were not followed in connection with or in actions leading up to or related to the FBI director's public announcement in July that you'll recall when he said that there was not probable cause to prosecute Hillary Clinton. And he also said the director's letter to Congress on October 28th and November 6th and that certain underlying investigative decisions were based on improper consideration. So that is referring to the letter from Director Comey to Capitol Hill saying that essentially the Hillary Clinton investigation will resume based on new information that came to light. So the Inspector General will be looking at the circumstances surrounding that letter. And it goes on to list an allegation that the FBI Deputy Director should have been recused from participating in any investigative matters. Andy McCabe, of course, is the Deputy Director of the FBI. And also the Inspector General said he will look at allegations that the department's Assistant Attorney General for Legislative Affairs improperly disclosed non-public information to the Clinton campaign. He was the former attorney for John Podesta, of course, Clinton's campaign chairman, and WikiLeaks, a release of stolen documents through WikiLeaks, showed that there was communication between the Assistant Attorney General and John Podesta. That's another part of this investigation by the Inspector General. Also, a couple more allegations will look into that the department and FBI employees were improperly disclosed non-public information and allegations that decisions regarding the timing of Freedom of Information Act requests coming out just before the election and on the FBI's Twitter account, as you may recall, regarding the Mark Rich investigation, the circumstances surrounding that. So these are the allegations listed in the statement from the Department of Justice's watchdog. And he also goes on to say here, Wolf, that as this review goes on, there is a possibility that the Inspector General will look into other allegations, perhaps extending over to Donald Trump's campaign. So it could include matters beyond just what happened surrounding the Clinton private email server investigation. But certainly big news here, Wolf. And we've reached out to the FBI, I should mention, but we have not received any statement from the FBI or Department of Justice on this news that the watchdog will be investigating pre-election actions taken by both agencies, Wolf.
That's a pretty startling development if you're the FBI director, James Comey. All of a sudden, you're learning, Pamela, that the Inspector General of the Department of Justice is going to investigate how you went public with all the information surrounding the Hillary Clinton emails, whether or not she should have been charged, but specifically 11 days before the election, going forward and saying, you know what, we're going to take another look. We're reopening it because of the Anthony Weiner issue that all of a sudden came forward. Then a couple days before the election, they said, never mind. It's a pretty startling potential rebuke of the sitting FBI director, James Comey. You got to read it like that, I assume, Pamela.
Right, and as you recall, at the time, he was strongly criticized from politicians, frankly, on both sides of the aisle because he made a decision that was breaking with Department of Justice precedent, which is not to publicly get involved with matters so close to an election that could be politically sensitive. And of course, this was incredibly politically sensitive because it had to do with an investigation involving the Democratic presidential candidate. And he, as we know, announced that he would be looking at this new new information that came to light through the Anthony Weiner investigation, and in a sense, reopening that investigation. Now, in his defense, what he said at the time, what the FBI said at the time, is that he was just following through on a promise that he had made to Congress that he would keep them apprised of any new information that came to light. And we know there were several meetings and leading up to that decision, but ultimately the director of the FBI felt like he wanted to kind of go his own way and not agree with Attorney General Lynch and others within the Justice Department who warned him to not do this. He said regardless, he was going to release this information publicly. That will be under scrutiny, as well as the press conference that Comey held in July, which was unprecedented, coming out and saying that there wasn't enough evidence to prosecute Hillary Clinton, but that what she did was irresponsible and reckless, and with the classified information that was found on her private server. So that will also be looked at, and just other broad allegations that have come to light from both Republican and, again, Democrat lawmakers who have been calling for this as recently as just a few days ago. As you recall, Wolf, Jason Chaffetz said that he still wanted an investigation into the private email server. So there have been these ongoing calls, and now the watchdog of the Department of Justice is saying that he will indeed look into these allegations and launch this investigation, Wolf.
And do we know why the Inspector General of the Department of Justice, Michael Horowitz, said he wants to review allegations that the FBI deputy director should have been recused from participating in certain investigative matters? Do we know what the allegation here is?
Yes, as I recall, it was because his wife was involved in political matters, and as a result, he should have recused himself because of his relationship with his wife. He should have never been on board with the investigation. But it's important to note she was no longer running for in politics when he took on a role in the investigation. At that time, he was leading the FBI Washington field office, and then after she had left politics, he then went over to the FBI bureau to take part in this investigation. That is what the FBI has said, but as you can see here, it is an allegation. It is something that the Inspector General will be looking into, whether he should have recused himself regardless. Wolf.
And the other allegation that the Assistant Attorney General for Legislative Affairs should have recused himself as well. Allegations that he improperly disclosed non-public information to the Clinton campaign and or should have been recused from participating in certain matters because of what political contributions that this individual may have made to the Hillary Clinton campaign. Was that the assertion?
The assertion, Wolf, as I recall, was there were information or communications, I should say, between this DOJ employee, the department's Assistant Attorney General for Legislative Affairs, and John Podesta, because he was John Podesta's former attorney years ago.
That's
and there
right.
were some communications that came to light where he gave John Podesta, I remember one of the emails was when he gave John Podesta a heads up about a hearing that would involve the Clinton email investigation. I don't recall the other communications, but at the time, it was under scrutiny and criticized that there was any communication between the Department of Justice and Clinton's campaign chairman at a time when the Department of Justice was investigating her use of a private email server. Wolf.
All right, Pamela Brown with the breaking news. Gloria Borger, Dana Bash, Jim Sciutto. We got our whole team over here. It's sort of a very significant development because you don't know. You open up an Inspector General investigation like this, it could go for a week, it could go for a month, it could go for a year. You don't know where it ends up. And in that last line, the Inspector General will consider other issues that may arise during the course of the review. Once you open up an investigation like this, it can go anywhere.
I think this is an agency that may be trying to get its reputation back, Wolf. During the campaign, there were lots of issues, as Pamela Brown just outlined, not only about what Comey said last July in extemporaneously commenting about Hillary Clinton's behavior, even though he had decided not to prosecute her, which is really out of the realm of the usual. And then the follow-up letter saying we're going to reopen the investigation and then closing it down again. I mean, if you talk to the Clinton people, as we all do, they believe this was dispositive in their loss of the election. I think that the Inspector General is doing what an Inspector General should do. They're the watchdog. They're trying to make sure that people respect the FBI and that the FBI plays by its own rules. And I think this is an agency that has been damaged by what occurred during the campaign, and there clearly have been requests for investigations. And I think that playing it out internally and having an independent watchdog investigate this is probably better from their point of view than having Jason Chaffetz do it on Capitol Hill publicly. So in the end, if I were in the FBI, I'd probably welcome this, because there was a lot of internal dissent at the time, as we all know, about just how this unfolded.
And let's be honest, although people who are running oversight committees in Congress take their jobs very seriously, they are partisan, and they are led by Republicans now who don't have a political interest in finding out what really happened at the FBI. This is the Inspector General's job, as you said. This is why that department exists within the FBI and many other government agencies, to make sure that they're on the straight and narrow. But boy, talk about sort of picking at a scab, which is maybe not even remotely beginning to heal politically, I'm talking about this whole election. That this is one of the main things that drives Democrats, I'm trying to tell you, crazy.
Hold on for one moment. The White House Press Secretary Josh Earnest is being asked about it right now. He's speaking. Let's listen in.
View of the situation based on their own knowledge of the facts, and hopefully they will follow the evidence where it leads, if they find any evidence.
A Chinese aircraft carrier entered Taiwanese, not exactly territorial waters, but the air identification zone. I wonder if you had a reaction to that, and if the U.S. government stepped in any way to kind of diffuse that situation.
I don't have a formal U.S. government response to that matter to share with you. We can see if there was any sort of reciprocal action or response from the U.S. With regard to that specific operation that was carried out by the Chinese Navy. What I can tell you is, we have long encouraged both sides to look for ways to prevent tensions from escalating. And we believe that, one of the goals of our One China policy is to prevent tensions from escalating, both because we don't want tensions about that matter to interfere with our ability to work with China on a range of areas where we can make progress together, but also because obviously we value our interactions with the Taiwanese, including with regard to our trading relationship with them.
All right, we're going to break away from Josh Earnest. They gave a brief little reaction to the Department of Justice Inspector General announcing there will be a full-scale investigation. Several matters largely involving the Hillary Clinton email server that were investigated, and statements made by the FBI director, among others, during the course of the presidential campaign. I interrupted you, Dana, but you finish your thought.
Well, I was just talking about how this is necessary, particularly since the Republicans are in charge of Congress, and about how this is, very much wanted by Democrats, but depending on what the Inspector General finds, it could throw our president into a tailspin, because there is nothing that makes him more crazy, more than suggesting that he didn't win the presidency fair and square, and that there is any question about the legitimacy of his taking office. And so that's why this Inspector General's report, which, no question, it's hard to imagine it's going to come out in the next week if they do their due diligence, will come out when he's already in office, is going to be fascinating.
Just to echo Dana's point, we already have, and we've been talking about it for days and weeks, this Russia question, the interference in the election, the question, did it influence the election? The intelligence community has not made a judgment on that, but there's a portion of the country that believes it did, and that clearly riles the president-elect and his supporters. So now you have this, which Democrats have been claiming for some time, that Comey interfered improperly. And both of those things are going to continue as issues. You're going to have hearings, talk of sanctions on Russia, cyber response, et cetera. That's going to continue for weeks and months. This investigation is going to continue for months on two fronts. I should note, though, that to be fair, it's not just about that, right? Because it also talks about possible not bad behavior, but improper behavior by the assistant AGs sharing information with the Clinton campaign. But then, and you made this note, Wolf, with all investigations, just think of Whitewater, right? It may have started on one front. It gives that open-ended end there saying, and we may look into other issues. Who knows where it goes.
And how does this affect James Comey as he does his job? I mean, he's early on into a 10-year term.
That's
He's
true.
he's got a long way to go.
He's got 7 years to go.
But he's one of the key people in the group advising the president elect on all kinds of issues, particularly national security, as in the Russia hack. And the question is, how do the Democrats relate to James Comey while he's under investigation, and what does he have to recuse himself from going forward, given the fact that the IG is investigating him?
I want to get Simone and Kaylee's quick reaction. Simone.
Well, I just want to note, not a day ago, Director Comey said, and I quote, "I would never comment on investigations, whether we have one or not, in an open forum." And I had the big eye emoji, like, were you not here during the election? So I definitely think this is needed. Director Comey broke precedent with the Justice Department. And Democrats, we want to get to the bottom of this. We were begging Director Comey to come out with proper information. He dragged his feet. He'll tell you he doesn't have a political bone in his body. He's politically aloof, and I think we all agree here. So now there are consequences for your actions, and I hope the Inspector General comes with some.
Look, I think the FBI director gets a very bad rap, particularly when it comes to the October letter. As Pamela mentioned, he was subject to two cross-cutting obligations on his part. One is to not interfere with the election, and one is to update his congressional testimony. And we know the IRS chief, John Koskinen, was in trouble for not updating Congress with regard to his testimony. He didn't want to fall victim to that. He was in an unenviable position. He received criticism from Republicans in July, criticism from Democrats in October, and I think he's a man of upstanding character, and I think he will emerge from this after long scrutiny unscathed.
Everybody stand by. There's more breaking news coming in. Donald Trump's pick for Secretary of Defense, General James Mattis, faced some very tough questions from senators in his confirmation hearing, but also he got some kind words.
Members of the committee, this man, Jim Mattis, brings to the job of the Secretary of Defense